They say love is loud, that it's found in words, in passion, in the heat of constant closeness. But what if the deepest love doesn't shout? What if it hides behind silence, behind distance, behind the small and steady gestures that most people never notice? For the avoidant heart, love is not about possession or display. It's a quiet endurance, a devotion that doesn't seek attention, it seeks truth. To understand their love, you must learn to see what others overlook. Because when an avoidant loves you, it's not in moments of intensity. It's in the moments they stay, even when every part of them wants to run. The avoidance paradox of attachment is one of the most fascinating and misunderstood dynamics in human love. It begins with a contradiction that defines their emotional world. On the surface, the avoidant personality appears self-contained, independent, almost untouched by the need for intimacy. They seem to thrive in solitude, to feel safer behind emotional distance than within the unpredictable currents of closeness. But underneath that calm exterior lies a quiet, aching desire for connection, a longing they rarely allow themselves to admit or reveal. This is the paradox. The heart that fears being seen also yearns to be known. The very closeness they avoid is the thing they need most deeply. An avoidance relationship with love is not one of absence, but of control. Love to them feels dangerous because it threatens the stability they've built through detachment. Emotional dependence feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like loss of self. They grew up, in one way or another, believing that love comes with pain, that intimacy demands too much, that safety lies in self-reliance. So they build walls, carefully designed boundaries that promise security. But when they meet someone who touches them on a soul level, those walls begin to tremble. They find themselves drawn toward the very thing they've spent a lifetime protecting themselves from. The internal conflict that follows is not indifference. It is proof of care so deep it terrifies them. When an avoidant starts to love, it often looks like hesitation, withdrawal, or even coldness. Yet each retreat is not a rejection. It's a coping mechanism. They are not running from you, but from the intensity of what they feel. Their instinct is to regain control, to restore the familiar sense of distance that keeps them safe. But love doesn't disappear in that space. It deepens. The very act of pulling away means something inside them is being stirred, challenged, awakened. When they find themselves thinking of you even while they're apart, when they cannot escape the quiet gravity of the bond, they begin to realize that something within them has changed. You have entered their inner world, a place few are ever allowed to go. For the avoidant, attachment is not an easy surrender. It is a battle between the mind that fears and the heart that remembers. They remember how it felt to be abandoned, dismissed, or unseen. They remember that love once came with conditions or judgment. So when they feel genuine affection for someone, it awakens those memories of risk. Their first response is to protect themselves. But the longer the bond endures, the more they sense that love can exist without threat. Slowly, their fear becomes recognition. The longing they suppressed starts to surface not as a demand, but as a quiet acceptance. What makes this paradox so powerful is that it reveals a truth many overlook. Emotional distance can coexist with emotional depth. An avoidant may not declare their love openly, may not seek constant closeness, but the mere fact that they allow someone into their space, that they continue to return despite their instinct to flee, is evidence of deep attachment. They are loving in the only way they know how, through restraint, through endurance, through the tension between fear and devotion. So when you see an avoidant struggling to stay yet unable to leave, know that you are witnessing love in its raw, unrefined form. The push and pull, the silence and return, are not signs of indifference. They are signs of an inner world learning to trust again. Beneath every pause, behind every guarded glance, lies a heart that wants to belong but has forgotten how. And when that heart chooses to keep you, despite the fear, despite the instinct to run, that is the proof that they want you, not just for now, but forever. For an avoidant, love does not unfold in dramatic confessions or passionate displays. It reveals itself quietly, through patterns of consistency rather than waves of intensity. Their way of loving is measured, often subtle, sometimes mistaken for indifference, but beneath that restraint lies something profound. Where others use words and emotion to express devotion, the avoidant uses presence, steady, understated, and reliable. It is not how often they speak of love that matters. It is how they remain, even in silence. Their love is not a burning flame that consumes. It is an ember that endures, constant and calm, even when no one is watching. Avoidants rarely trust the intensity of their own feelings. To them, emotional extremes can feel unsafe or manipulative. They may associate grand gestures with instability, promises with pressure, and vulnerability with danger. So, instead of overwhelming their partner with expressions of affection, they demonstrate love through controlled action, through showing up when it matters, through fulfilling small but meaningful commitments, through maintaining a quiet rhythm of reliability. This is how they communicate safety. To an avoidant, stability is not an absence of passion, it is the truest form of care. When they love deeply, they will not always say it, but they will notice what brings you peace. They will adapt in ways that protect the connection without announcing it. They may check in on your well-being, remember small details, or quietly make your life easier without drawing attention to their efforts. To them, this is intimacy, not through emotional overflow, but through subtle constancy. In a world that celebrates loud declarations, their devotion hides behind restraint. Yet it is precisely that restraint that gives it authenticity. They do not perform love, they preserve it. This consistency is what separates fleeting attachment from lasting affection. When an avoidant loves someone, they may take distance now and then, but they always find their way back. The return is not a routine habit. It is a reflection of attachment that withstands time and internal struggle. While others might express love through intensity, the highs of passion and the lows of conflict, avoidants express it through endurance. They don't want to conquer love. They want to keep it safe. And so, even when they withdraw, even when they seem unreachable, there is an invisible thread that keeps them tethered to what they value. Their loyalty lives in repetition. The calls that come eventually, the quiet gestures that never stop, the unspoken understanding that they still care. In their world, love must be something that survives the storm, not something that feeds it. They equate consistency with truth. When they see relationships built on constant emotional highs, they often sense instability and recoil. They are drawn to the kind of love that breathes steadily, where they are not asked to perform, where they can be themselves without judgment, where they can love in the background without being questioned for it. This is why their affection often feels calm, grounded, even minimal. It is not lack of feeling, but a reflection of emotional discipline. They would rather give you something that lasts than something that dazzles and fades. To understand an avoidant's love, you must learn to see the invisible, the quiet moments when they show up without being asked, the steadiness of their actions over time, the rare occasions when they let you into their solitude. Their love is a slow rhythm, a repetition of reliability that builds trust quietly. They may not offer the thrill of constant emotional intensity, but they offer something rarer, the kind of constancy that remains even when words fall away. In their silence, in their steadiness, in the gentle way they keep returning, you will find the proof of their deepest devotion. For an avoidant, emotional safety is the most sacred form of devotion. It is not something they give easily, because it requires the one thing they fear most: vulnerability. Their world has been built on self-reliance, on the quiet belief that depending on someone else is dangerous. They learned early, often through subtle wounds, that love can be unpredictable, that affection can vanish without warning, that being open invites pain. So they create distance, not out of cruelty, but as a defense. They build walls around their emotions because that is where they have always found control. Yet when they meet someone who makes them feel understood without judgment, something inside them begins to soften. Emotional safety becomes the bridge between fear and love, the quiet threshold where they start to trust again. When an avoidant begins to trust you with their silence, that is the moment they are revealing their devotion. Silence for them is not a void, it is a space of protection. Most people rush to fill silence with words, but for the avoidant, silence is honesty. It is the place where they can exist without the demand to perform, to please, or to explain. If they allow you into that silence, if they can sit beside you, unguarded, saying nothing but feeling at peace, it means you have entered the rare territory of emotional safety. That space is where their love lives. It is not expressed through declarations, but through comfort in stillness. Emotional safety for an avoidant is built slowly, layer by layer. At first they will test the waters, revealing small fragments of themselves, a memory, a thought, a moment of vulnerability disguised as curiosity. They watch carefully to see how you respond. Do you judge, fix, or dismiss what they share? Or do you simply listen, allowing them to exist as they are? Each calm, patient response becomes a signal to their nervous system that it is safe to stay. What they need most is not passion, but acceptance. The sense that they can be flawed, distant, quiet, and still loved. This acceptance dissolves their armor more effectively than any confrontation or persuasion ever could. The moment they begin to show you glimpses of their inner world, even in subtle ways, it is proof that you have become their emotional anchor. You will notice it not through words, but through changes in their behavior. They may begin to reach out first, share moments from their day, or open up about small fears. These gestures may seem ordinary, but for them they are monumental. They are risking the very thing they have spent their lives guarding, the self that feels, the self that hopes. When they trust you with that self, they are not just showing affection, they are showing reverence. You have become their place of calm in a world that feels threatening. To them, emotional safety is love in its truest form. It is not the rush of passion or the constant exchange of emotion, but the ability to exist together without fear, when they no longer feel the need to retreat, when their silence turns from distance to peace. It means they have found home in your presence. They may not say it, but the way they relax around you, the way their defenses lower, the way they allow you to see their imperfections, that is the language of their heart. It is their quiet confession, their proof of love that runs deeper than words. In a world that measures affection by intensity, the avoidance version of love is often misunderstood, yet their gift is rare. To love through safety, to care through calm, to prove their commitment, not by how loudly they speak, but by how deeply they trust. When they let you close enough to hold their silence without fear, you have reached the deepest part of them, the place where love and safety finally become the same thing. For an avoidant, love is not measured by how close they stand to you, but by how faithfully they remain connected even when they are far away. Distance, both emotional and physical, is part of their way of coping with vulnerability. It is not absence but protection, not indifference but a form of self-preservation. When they care deeply, their instinct is not to move closer but to create space, a space that allows them to breathe, to regulate their emotions, to make sense of feelings that often overwhelm them. But what defines their love is not the act of stepping back. It is the choice to stay tethered to you through that distance. They may withdraw, but they do not disappear. They may grow silent, but they still listen. Their heart remains quietly intertwined with yours, even when their body or words do not. To understand this, one must see distance not as a lack of love, but as a struggle between two powerful needs, the need for independence and the need for connection. The avoidant is constantly negotiating this inner conflict. They crave closeness, but fear what it might cost them. They long to be understood, yet they are terrified of being exposed. So they retreat, hoping to protect both themselves and the bond they care about. To them, stepping away is not abandonment. It is an attempt to keep love from becoming a battlefield. And when they continue to return after these moments of withdrawal, it is because something within them cannot let go. That return is the purest proof of devotion they can offer. Even in silence, their love has a pulse. You may notice it in small, almost invisible gestures, the message sent after days of quiet, the familiar tone in their voice when they finally reach out, the way they pick up exactly where things left off. To someone unfamiliar with their nature, this may seem inconsistent, but for the avoidant, it is their version of continuity. They do not seek constant communication or reassurance, yet they remain emotionally anchored to the person who has reached their heart. This endurance through distance is not accidental. It is deliberate. It is how they sustain connection without losing themselves. Time and space do not diminish their attachment. They clarify it. When an avoidant truly loves someone, they keep that person in their internal world, no matter how far they roam. Their thoughts circle back, their emotions linger, their loyalty endures in quiet persistence. They might not voice it, but you live within their mental landscape, in their routines, in their reflections, in the subtle ways they move through life. Love for them is not a constant exchange, but a constant presence. Even when unseen, it exists, steady and unbroken. Many mistake their distance for emotional coldness, but in truth, it is often the opposite. It is because they care so deeply that they need to retreat to manage the intensity. The closer they feel, the more fragile they become. Love, for them, activates both desire and fear, the desire to merge and the fear of losing identity. When they learn to stay connected through that fear, when they return, even after pulling away, they are demonstrating immense courage. They are showing that the bond has become stronger than their defenses. Over time, this endurance becomes the quiet rhythm of their love. They may not always be physically close, but their presence lingers, reliable in its own restrained way. Each time they come back, they are reaffirming their choice. They are saying, without words, that despite their fear of being hurt, despite their instinct to run, something in you feels like home. Their love may not shout across the distance, but it never truly leaves. It moves beneath the surface, steady, loyal, unbroken. A love that survives not because it is loud, but because it endures. When an avoidant begins to transform through connection, it marks the most profound proof of their love. Change does not come easily for them. It challenges the very structures that have kept them emotionally safe their entire lives. They have built their world around self-protection, around control, independence, and emotional boundaries that keep vulnerability at bay. Love, however, threatens to dismantle that system. It exposes the cracks in their defenses and invites them into an unfamiliar territory where safety is no longer found in distance, but in trust. When an avoidant loves deeply, they are faced with a choice: to stay hidden behind their walls or to risk being seen, to remain untouched or to evolve. And when they begin to choose growth, it is not by accident. It is because love has reached a part of them that logic cannot control. This transformation often begins quietly. They start to notice how their usual coping strategies, withdrawing, shutting down, avoiding confrontation, no longer bring them the same comfort. The person they love becomes a mirror, reflecting not only affection, but also the ways in which fear has shaped their behavior. Through this reflection, they begin to confront themselves. The emotional distance that once felt safe begins to feel lonely. The solitude that once empowered them begins to ache. Something inside them starts to shift, a recognition that love cannot coexist with complete isolation. They begin to realize that connection does not have to mean loss, that letting someone in does not mean surrendering their identity. As this awareness grows, their behavior subtly changes. Where they once would have run from conflict, they might now pause and stay. Where they would have avoided emotional conversations, they might attempt to speak, even if their words come slowly. Every effort to engage, every step toward openness, is a quiet rebellion against their old fears. These changes may seem small from the outside, but they represent enormous courage. Each act of emotional presence is a risk they take for love. They are learning to replace avoidance with vulnerability, distance with dialogue, control with trust. And that shift is not a performance. It is an act of genuine devotion. Through this process, love becomes their teacher. The avoidant begins to see that connection is not weakness but strength. They start to understand that intimacy does not have to consume them. It can coexist with freedom. When they allow themselves to be seen, truly seen, they begin to experience a form of safety that does not depend on isolation, but on mutual understanding. This is the point where their love deepens beyond instinct or attraction. It becomes conscious. They are no longer just protecting themselves, they are protecting something shared, something sacred. This transformation is often subtle but unmistakable. You will see it in the way they begin to apologize without being asked, in the way they try to repair instead of retreat, in the moments they reach for your hand instead of turning away. Their language becomes softer, their presence more intentional. These are not random gestures, but signs of evolution. Proof that love has become a force of growth within them. Through you, they are learning to trust the world again. Such growth is rare and deeply meaningful because it requires them to confront the very pain they once buried. They must face the ghosts of rejection and abandonment, and still choose to love. Every time they stay, they are rewriting the story of their past. Every time they open up, they are healing the parts of themselves that once believed love was dangerous. This process does not happen overnight, but when it does, it changes them at their core. Love becomes not just an emotion they feel, but a path of transformation they walk willingly. It is through this transformation that an avoidant reveals their deepest truth, that love has not only reached them, but reshaped them. And in that evolution lies the quiet proof that they do not just want you for a moment, they want you for life. The love of an avoidant is not fragile. It is forged through fear, tested through distance, and proven through change. They may never be the ones to write grand love letters or speak in poetic confessions, but their devotion runs deeper than words. It lives in their return after silence, in the way they protect your peace, in the effort they make to grow beyond their own walls. To love you, they must first confront everything within themselves that once believed love was unsafe, and that is the most powerful act of love there is. So when you find someone who loves this way, quietly, imperfectly, courageously, do not mistake their restraint for absence. You are witnessing a heart learning to trust again, a soul choosing connection over fear. That kind of love does not fade. It endures, it evolves, it lasts forever.